Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Sorry I'm a little bit late. School business. Um, okay. So just to get started, it is Monday morning, June 13th, which it's about, it says 9:35. Um, anyway, I had to make a couple phone calls and hopefully, cross my fingers, those phone calls it will have been productive somewhat sent. Okay. Um, all right. And that was all in relation to I had to double check that I had actually sent it, even though I remember sending it. So this all goes back to my me trying to get a flyer out to Evergreen Public Schools. So I had at one time, as you know, a couple weeks ago, I had sent this off and I was like, hey, yeah, it's not. Where is it? I haven't seen it. Sent it off. And well, it never came out. And I basically farmed 2,000 email addresses, over 2,000 more email addresses. Good morning, Harvey, and good morning, Rob. How are you? Um, I farmed like all of these email addresses, and I wanted to send it out in a certain format, and so I was like, okay, do I send it out this way or do I send it out that way? So I had been testing it Friday and over the weekend, and it was nice because I had my wife's email that I could send it to, and I've sent stuff to her before in email, and it never went to junk mail. So obviously, the flyer or even the information, even when I just send it as a text with no pictures, um, it like it would still go to her junk mail. And this, of course, um, almost. Oh, hold on a second. Morning, artist and martial arts. This is Mish. Hi. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, you too. Bye bye. So that was Shelly at Community Relations, and she's like, yeah. She says, I just got the flyer. She says, for some reason it went to junk, which means that my previous one went in junk a couple weeks ago, and so she is going to send it out to. She's going to send it out to the secretaries and have the secretaries send it out to everybody at the school. So, yes, I'm so excited because I was banging my head against. I couldn't figure out how to get this past the firewalls. Like everything, just even in text, no photos, no nothing, was all going to junk mail. So, success. We'll see how this promotes. So don't know why I didn't figure that out earlier, but yeah. Guten Morgen. Are you trying? You're funny, Thomas. Good morning, Thomas. Um, so there you go. Now on to and I could not find, for some reason I can't find my normal cup, and I can't drink out of a smaller cup. So I have this. It's a nice big cup. Mm. Ah, good tea. Good morning, Bill. So, um, I don't know if this is going to be. I don't know how spoilerish this is going to be. This is from basically Friday, and this was a comment left on Friday's uh, Friday's podcast after everything was over. Okay. But I want to read this. Okay. So, and actually, I don't even know. Let's see. Let's see. Can I shrink this down? Oh, good morning, Kim. Anyway, so I wanted to read this because this guy actually kind of has a point. This is how it goes. Says, I appreciate that this won't be popular, but I think it's time that we talked about Captain Pike. Well, now hear this guy out. In this episode alone, we literally watch Uhura basically commit manslaughter when she shoots down a vessel. I'm sorry, but that's what happens. Despite her claims to the contrary, the vessel does not change course and fly into her phaser fire. It just doesn't. Even if it did, it wouldn't change the fact that Uhura is terrible at her job at this moment. And of course, she's young, she's learning, but she's stumbling through. But it's Pike that bothers me the most at this moment. He doesn't reprimand her, nor does he reprimand Singh for not taking her station in a real world situation that could have easily endured or ensured this catastrophe is avoided. Pike doesn't order scans of the vessel to determine if there's any survivors. Pike doesn't order the tractor beam to be engaged so he might prevent the craft from hurtling towards the planet. Pike has so little information at this moment, he fails to do the absolute bare minimum here in order to maintain the order one might expect with a competent commander. So what does he do? He leaves the bridge with no security, or without security, no less, and heads to the transporter room with his first officer moments following this tragedy. For all he knows, Uhura just shot down the good guys, and the guests now beaming aboard are the actual enemies he needs to worry about, which actually kind of what ends up happening. For all that he knows, there could be hundreds of additional enemy vessels arriving while his bridge remains unattended and the damaged vessel continues to plummet to the moon below. Later in the episode, Pike again watches another bridge officer basically commit manslaughter, this time with a tractor beam. The officer in question fails to disengage the tractor beam before the ship explodes. Again, Pike fails to reprimand her for being too slow to follow his orders. Pike again fails to scan for any possible life forms he might. Pike fails to reprimand her for being too slow to follow his orders. Pike again fails to scan any possible life forms he might still save. And Pike doesn't so much as order investigation into what just happened, so as to ensure it might not be a problem moving forward. Add to all this fact that Pike again is portrayed to be prejudiced against another alien culture, and we can only arrive at one conclusion. Pike is terrible at his job, simply terrible. He continues to be depicted as the least deft captain in all of Starfleet, and certainly nowhere near worthy of captaining a flagship of the fleet. I don't care how charming or good looking he is not a competent captain. It's an absolute shame and a waste of Anson Mount's incredible talents. Okay, that all being said, now he does have some points there. I disagree with the whole thing about Captain Pike being a completely inept captain, but like when Uhura, I don't know, I would have to watch the episode again, but Uhura does, the phaser beam does cut the ship in half and it crash lands. So I mean, how do we chalk that up to? Was it an accident? And even if it was an accident, shouldn't there have been some type of, you should have been watching out. But I don't know. There's, does this warrant going back? And because this guy really looked at this episode, because we watch the episodes, at least I watch the episodes for entertainment. And yes, there are some good meanings there, but there's, I don't know, is this delving too deep into it? Rob. Okay. He does make some good points regarding duties, but I disagree with the statement about him being an inept captain. Uhura did accidentally set the phaser power incorrect, if memory serves. Yes, she did. And because she says, I didn't mean to do that. Now, should, if you have, but then, okay, so should she have been in that seat in that situation? I don't know. But at what point do you take a trainee and put them into live, like it seems like she's doing rounds in all the departments. Okay. So she's a communicator or a linguistics major. She's and she's kind of trying her hand at all of these different departments, which I kind of think is cool. If a cadet hasn't really figured out exactly where they want to go, they are given a choice. Fantastic. Or given a choice, they get to play around. But at what point do you take this trainee and put them in a real situation? So I have come to the conclusion that Obi-Wan is a menace. He just goes around cutting off body parts all willy-nilly like. Well, if you look at it from that perspective, yeah. But then again, I don't know. There's yeah. So I thought that was an interesting perspective. I kind of almost want to go back and watch all the previous episodes to see if, or maybe even just kind of pay more attention to future episodes going forward. I don't know. So as I was talking, a email came in from Shelly. She said, all sent to all the secretaries. So hopefully that won't end up in junk mail. All right, let me send a text really quick to Amy. Let's see. Spoke to Shelly, period. It did go to her junk mail, period. She sent it out to all the secretaries, period. Yay, exclamation point. All right, so that is how I do most of my texting now, is all by dictation. And it's really funny because there are some times where I'll be texting somebody, mainly my wife. I'll be in the car, I'll be doing the voice text, and then somebody will cut me off, and then I yell at that person, like we all do. Don't tell me that you are not above yelling at another person from your car. And of course it picks up everything I have said. So I have to stop it, go back and delete most of it. I've thought about just kind of like just starting to send messages as they come out, regardless. I mean, I wouldn't do that to everybody, but like my friends and my wife, family, just being like, hey, so they might get like this really weird translation. It's like, I'm at Costco. What do you want me to pick up from dinner? God damn it. I can't believe you did that. You bleep, 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 whatever. Yeah, it's, I don't know. Yeah. So, let's see. Bill says, I see where he's coming from, but it's the captain's responsibility to delegate to department heads and to greet new diplomats and other civilizations. Now it is, but so he does delegate to other department heads, and Liana, or not Liana, Laana, who is the department head for security. She was the one that had Uhura in that spot when Uhura, pushed the buttons and did whatever. So should have Liana been in that spot. That's instead of Uhura. And because Uhura accidentally committed manslaughter, what kind of reprimand is she going to get? I don't know. So, is being in a situation like this one of those where she's like, yeah, can't do security. I'll wear a red shirt, but I think I'm going to stick to the communication side. I mean, are some of these are some of these uh, um, what is it? Are some of these God, I can't even think of the word. Um, are some of these experiences that she's having? Are some of these experiences she are some of these experiences that she's having while as a cadet, going from uh, going from department to department? Are those the experiences that she's building on that will really solidify her into being a in communications? How do we know he didn't rip her a new one in private? Potentially, it could have been off screen. Let's see. Thomas, no, throw the newbie into the mix. She is out of the academy, and so she has the training. It is, but she doesn't have the training in everything, though. Not everything. I mean, I think that there should be like a basic training. So there's, it's whatever. I don't know. Let's see. Okay. So was it manslaughter or was it defending the diplomatic delegation from an unknown attacker? Okay. So I think that goes up to a bigger question. Now, my Starfleet is they are not a series of warships per se. They have warship capabilities, but they are not warships. They are explorers. They are they're dedicated to science and exploration, and the whole federation of what was it? God, I actually kind of really liked the way that Pike put it in the Kelvin universe. A scientific and peacekeeping armada, I think is the way that he put it. But when he was talking to Kirk in the bar. Now, but where do they draw the line at killing off other species? Because even in this universe, Pike has said, I wish I could, point the to the episode, but he said that, Federation, and it might have actually been somewhere in this episode where the Federation is, what is it? It is all life is valuable or all life is precious. So at what point do they say it's okay to end another race's life? And maybe that might not have been Pike. Maybe that might have been a Janeway thing. But it is like all life is precious. We don't just destroy life, but sometimes they just destroy life. I mean, Starfleet is a political organization more than a military one. Yes, well, I think it would all be political, but it still goes by the more of a peacekeeping armada than a military armada. There was a distress call, and when they arrived, they tried to hail the other ship with no response. True. So would it be man? So okay. So I guess kind of the question where I'm going with is, where would you say, okay, it's manslaughter or alien slaughter? I guess. Or no, wait, or oid, we say oid slaughter, like, because we're saying humanoid or human, because that's kind of where manslaughter is. It's, you're taking it was more men, but you have the manslaughter is a derivative of human. So if you just said humanoid, so you could because not all are men, you could do oid slaughter. Is that I don't know, I'm just messing with the terminology, but if you when you go from let's see, when you go off of killing somebody or killing a race, where do they get off at drawing that line between murder and defending themselves? That's a good question. I don't remember. Bipedal species slaughter. Yeah. But going back to Bills, I can't remember if they were fired on first. I've only seen the episode once. So, and I can say I haven't had a chance to go back and watch it a second time. I probably need to do that. My wife actually had me watching, I don't know, after class on Saturday, as I was kind of tinkering around on the computer, we were watching, we watched some interesting documentaries on Netflix. And then Sunday we ended up watching Stranger Things, which I had already seen the first season, and I had seen maybe the first episode of the second season, but I just never watched it from there. Well, Lisa couldn't remember. Excuse me. She couldn't remember the second season or the first season at all. Then again, she can't remember yesterday. So she's like, oh, let's just rewatch it all. And so we got into like the second or third episode of the second season. And I can kind of see why I didn't continue watching Stranger Things. I just didn't capture, like, I remember like staying up. Like I watched, like, I don't know, we had started the thing and I was up until like 3 or 4 in the morning watching Stranger Things going, oh my God, this is such an amazing show. And then it just didn't. Yeah. I don't know. So just didn't spark. Dementia or Alzheimer's. Oh, that's the LOL. Probably in the future. With her, yes. So her grandfather on her mother's side, he had Alzheimer's, and her mother, I'm convinced has something somewhere in there, either dementia, not necessarily Alzheimer's. I would go more on the dementia, but yes, and not confirmed, just my personal experiences with dementia patients. My mother-in-law has dementia, and even Ashton, even in his limited experience with dementia patients, he agrees. So that's going to be fun. But she refuses to go to a doctor. And when she says she has gone to a doctor, she's like, oh no, they say I'm just fine. So, yeah, that is probably something that's going to happen to Lisa. Unfortunately, just because, her grandfather, her mother, and potentially her. Let's see. I think the wear and just because you bring a 22 gun to the fight and start shit, don't expect someone to not shoot back with a bigger gun. That's true. I mean, if they're defending themselves, it's one thing. it could, you know, I don't know. I think it definitely warrants a rewatch and to look at some, um, but I don't think he's completely inept. Um, so I don't know. That's just my thing. Okay. Let's now I did watch it forward. Let's see. I cannot where did I find that? Where did it go? Okay. So I had watched forward in the episodes. And I'm actually already watching. I watched a little bit of it this morning while doing laundry. The Live Fast and what is it? Live Fast and Prosper. That's the episode where Janeway and Tuvok, or basically the Voyager crew, are being some con men are playing their parts. So, but when we look at, I can't remember. Let's see. So Saturday, did I cover some Sunkatsi? I think I already covered. So Collective, you have so over the weekend, basically we had Collective, Spirit Folk, Ash to Ashes, Child's Play, and Good Shepherd. Collective. This was, I believe, the episode where they run into this Borg ship that has a virus, and it killed pretty much everybody except for the kids. And so that's where we get Ejeb, I think Ejeb, the twins, that one girl. I think we end up getting the 4 kids. And it was interesting how that was how they kind of put that all together. And then I remember I was like, at some point there's going to be an episode where we meet Ejeb's parents. And I couldn't remember exactly where that is. That actually ends up being, I think, in Child's Play. So Spirit Folk, basically we go back to the episode. What is it? We go back to Fairhaven on the brig, or on the holodeck, and they're slowly becoming more aware of what's going on. And honestly, I couldn't tell you how it ended. I know I watched the ending. I just can't remember how it ended. I think maybe the hollow emitters were, I think there was something that was going on and they actually had to shut everything down, but but also all of them were becoming sentient. Ashes to Ashes. This is the, a couple seasons ago, there was a character that she and Harry were on some mission, and she dies. So they shoot her body into space. Well, this race picks her up and regenerates her and basically transforms her DNA back to her. And so she's like, she ends up finding Voyager again, convinces them this is who I am. Doctor comes up with he says he can't redo her DNA, but can at least change her looks. And he says, this is literally going to be skin deep. And of course that starts to backfire. So long story short, she ends up going back to the race because, that's how the race propagates, is by basically reanimating dead people, wiping their memories, and then giving them new lives. it was interesting. You know, you try and have this love story between Kim, and then he loses her again. It's an interesting episode. Bill's got to go. See you later. I'll see you tomorrow. And then Child's Play. This was actually this is where we meet Egypt's parents. And this is okay. This is kind of where I know that there's supposed to be some type of suspension of disbelief, but we've got these kids, and then all of a sudden, Egypt's parents, like they get a hold of Egypt's parents. Like we never hear the behind the scenes of like, how did they do that? Did they reach out to some of their, did they communicate with some of their people that they've, been in contact with and be like, hey, we found these kids and we, they used to be Borg and they're not anymore. And we want to get them back to their parents. Like, how did they do that? Like, and especially with his parents being more of, being planet based. I don't know. That's the one thing I'm like, how did she get a hold of these people? How did Janeway get a hold of these people? Anyway, find out that Egypt was actually bred to be the virus for the Borg. And so he was found, like his parents said, oh no, he was assimilated on the planet, but then the Borg basically I'll show that in a second, Rob. That's pretty funny. But then the records actually showed that it was that he was alone on a spaceship. So they pretty much determined that his parents basically sacrificed him so he could kill the Borg, because there was a Borg conduit, a transport conduit, just like maybe a light year or a half a light year away from their planet. So Rob suggests that it was possibly hollow pictures on milk cartons spread throughout the Delta Quadrant. You never know. It was the late 90s. They were still doing stuff like that. And then Good Shepherd. Good Shepherd was a kind of like almost like a Lower Decks episode, but not as funny. So Janeway goes on an away mission with three crewmen. One of them, I can't remember any of their names, but they're all kind of failures. And one guy was actually saying that I guess he was, I can't remember what but basically he was going to be this theorist, and he had to do a year of Starfleet before actually going on to whatever service that he was going to go on to. So and then of course he gets stuck on Voyager, and he's 5 years into this thing. So so it's basically her adventures with them. They get stuck in this area. I can't remember if it was like an alien. I know this one guy, he gets transported up. He's kind of a hypochondriac. He gets transported away and then transported in with this alien in him. And then the alien comes out. And then the theorist, kills the alien. Oh, and that might have been where I got that from, because she's like, because Janeway totally reams this guy's ass for killing this creature, because they had no idea what it was, had no clue. And that they're all life is precious. And then he escapes in a I guess I can't remember. He escapes in a in like an escape pod. God, I really wish I could remember more about this episode. But anyway, the theorist dies. They get back to the ship, and the episode just kind of ends. Basically, it's like, oh, these failures of the society, they just, they don't fit. I don't know. Maybe it was a filler episode. I wish I could remember more, but it is what it is. Anyway, so this week we have today we have Live Fast and Prosper, and then Muse, and then tomorrow we have Fury and Lifeline. Don't know how much I'm going to watch today. I'm going to I've got other school stuff I need to do, so I don't know if I'll play that in the background or not. When we look at going forward this week, we have, and I would actually have, in fact, did I update the slides? That's a good question. Let me see if I updated the slides. Well, okay, we'll delete this, and then we'll go to my computer, because I did not update this on my coming in. No, I did not update the slides. Shoot. Let's see. At least by the date. So we will see it's uploading, and will it pop up? Oh my gosh. Yes. Yay, I did update it. Okay. So June 15th, Wednesday, we have Obi-Wan Part 5. On the 16th, we have the Orville Episode 3 and Strange New Worlds Episode 7. And then August, we get Andor and all the future stuff. No new dates to promote there. I'm just not a fan of the Orville right now. I mean, I'll watch it, but I'm just not. I mean, if you guys tuned into Friday's episode at all, we talked about Orville a little bit. Just not. Yeah. Oh, and one thing I need to add to this is, I think it's August 5th. Is it August 5th? Prey on Hulu. Prey is one of the new Predator movies. I'm so going to watch that. I'm actually kind of, I really want to watch it. I also want to see Batman, or The Batman, or whatever it's called. I think it's still on what do you call it? HBO Max. It's been on there. Haven't seen it at all. It could have just been that there's so much. It's 3 hours. I just was like, but then again, I could watch it on a weekend, because I don't do any, like Sunday is my day that I just vegetate. But I did end up watching Matrix Revelations. Was it Matrix Revelations? Was it Revelations or no. It was the last one. It was the most recent one. What was the point to that movie? It was so bad. Like, it gave an interesting, thing of why those two were still alive. But yeah, I don't know. I don't. Yeah. Rob says it's money. Absolutely, it was money. But like, it was so bad. Like, it's almost like, okay, so this is how for me, I don't know if I've told the story before. The Matrix. When I watched The Matrix, I was told, Mish, this is a movie that's down your alley. Okay, it's got computers, it's got martial arts, and yeah, it's got Keanu Reeves, but it's not like the surfer dude Keanu Reeves. Like, he actually does a good job. Okay. I watched the movie in the theater. My buddy actually paid for my ticket. He's like, I will buy you a ticket. So I watched the movie. I fell asleep. In the movie. Now, we also brought Lisa went along, and we brought Ashton when he was a baby. So Lisa spent most of her time in the hallway because Ashton just wasn't, we figured Ashton would sleep. Well, I was the one sleeping. I was the one that fell asleep during the movie. And then when it hit Blu-ray, or it hit DVD, when it hit DVD, it was one of those where it was like, oh, this is the movie. This is the movie for DVD. Buddy of mine bought it. He knew of a different friend of mine bought it. He's like, Mish, give it a second chance. All right, I'll give it a second chance. So we sit down, and I actually watched the whole movie. Didn't fall asleep. I watched the whole movie, and he's like, what do you think? And he was super excited. What do you think? Yeah, I just wasn't like, okay, it's a movie. I just did not. Yeah, it just wasn't there. So fast forward a few years, they have Matrix Reloaded coming out. I think it was in the theaters, but it was coming to. I don't know if it was in the theaters or if it was coming to DVD. But I was working at the video store, and so I think it might have been coming out. And so I decided, well, I'll give it another shot. So grabbed it off the shelf at work, brought it home, watched it by myself. And I was like, that's an amazing movie. So I don't know why it took me so long to really enjoy The Matrix. But the first movie, amazing. The second movie was good. It was enjoyable. It was good. And the third movie, it was okay. Like before even watching the fourth movie, again, Lisa and I rewatched all three. And I still think that the first movie, amazing. I really enjoy the movie. Second one is good. And the third one, it's okay. The fourth one, nope. There was no, I could have lived my life without having to see that movie. It just wasn't. Yeah. So it just kind of got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Maybe, and I can't say that I have to watch it a second time or a third time, because on third time's charm with Matrix movies. But I've actually seen Reloaded and the third movie, whatever that one's called. I've seen 2 and 3 a few times. So and I just still, they're all right. So when the fourth one came out, I'm like, ooh, yay, it's going to be on HBO. We'll get to watch it for free. And it was on HBO for a limited time, and then it left. Now it's back. I never watched it originally, so I just watched it a couple weeks ago. Just not that good. All right. Yeah. So I think that's all the news. I don't really have. Oh, yes. One update I do have, because I was just added to this. Let's see. This is still all happening. Let's see. Like I'm scrolling down with my cursor. Yeah, that's happening. So I actually believe that the Jim Korn Autumn Camp is going to be one of his Friends in the Arts camps, but it's going to be because October 1st and 2nd is actually like Saturday and Sunday with whatever the last day of September is, being that Friday. And so it is actually going to be 2 weeks. It's going to be the week before, the 25th, 26th, something like that. So he just set up a new thing, which it was funny because I was like, I was added to this thing, and I'm like, this chat on Facebook. And I'm like, I don't remember getting any of these messages. And then it says, oh, Mish was added. So, anyway, I think that's when it's going to be, is actually a week prior to these dates. So I'll have to update that. So there you go. All right. I think that's it for today. My tea is, in fact, I still have a lot of tea. So if I went for the rule of this podcast is not over at all. And it's still warm. So, let's see. Oh, here's a question for you. And for those of you, black belts. Okay. I know everybody kind of, there's different, different arts have different standards for black belt. But as a black belt, and I know that there's more people up there that are watching, but as a black belt, whether you're a martial artist or not, and please comment, what would you expect a black belt to be able to do? Like, and just even on the basic level, So like for me, kata. All right. Regardless if your system does kata or let's say, regardless of if your system takes their applications from kata, but if they do a form, a black belt, whether it's a brand new form for their belt or not, like for me, my black belts, going forward, my black belts don't do a new form for black belt. The last form you learn is for first kyu, and that is essentially a provisional black belt. But a black belt, like watching a black belt, and I don't care what age, because I've seen some of these, even Alexa, when she was like 6 or 7, the way she could do Naihanchi, her Naihanchi was beautiful. It was crisp, solid, but it also had flow at the same time. And it was her doing Naihanchi was just beautiful. But there was a friend of mine. I'm not going to disclose, name or anywhere, but it was videoed. There was video of the form that this student was doing, and I don't know the form. I didn't recognize the form, but it just looked awkward. Like it was like there was no crispness. There was no crispness to it. It was, and there are some where it's like, okay, when you're doing your form, like I have different levels to my forms. I have, the stumble, like you're walking through, like in the beginning where you're just doing step by step by step by step. And then there's like the demonstration, and then there's doing the form with application. So like one section could be slow and another section could be fast. But being in the martial arts for as long as I have, watching kata, like the one thing I enjoyed in watching karate Olympics was their forms. Like, I still have in the back of my head, do these people actually know what they're doing in the forms? But I'm always going to have that. I'm always going to have that thought. But it's like, but they were gorgeous. They really, really well done. And I know that, you know, a lot of black belts, they might not be, you know, Olympic level doing their forms, but there still should be some crispness. There should be some flow. There shouldn't be hesitation. There shouldn't be that look on their face of, oh, what's next? Okay. And that's just in kata. I don't know. So Rob says a black belt should have a solid working understanding of the basics and can teach them as well. Okay. I would agree with that. Now, but see, not all black belts can teach, though. That's the thing, is that, and here's the thing, and that's just from my perspective. Like, there are some systems where, that, I mean, you would kind of think that once you become a black belt, then you're kind of, your next job is to teach. But what I've come to understand is that there are just some black belts that they're just not going to be able to teach. Now, they should have a fully understanding of the basics. So like for me, first to second, and it's kind of gone back and forth, but I think first to second, just because it's so close, is first, for your second, you're to take all the stuff that you've learned for first and apply that to a brand new kata. I don't care where you learn it. It could be an Okinawan Kempo, or kata. It could be a Taekwondo kata. It could be, you know, a Tai Chi form. I don't care. But you take all that you've learned and apply it to that, and then teach. You know, you should be able to teach that kata. But being able to teach an entire system, some people that just isn't their calling. They're just black belts. You know, they're just, you know, and then there's some people who they become instructors. I kind of see that as an eventual path of mine. For me, I was born to be a teacher. In fact, even going all the way back to high school, you know, I was potentially looking into I was going to study English Lit and be an English teacher of all things. So being a teacher has always kind of been there. But it was one of those where, there are some black belts that I know, they're talented, but they just don't know how to teach. So, unless of course your system requires that, and then it's just, you know, it is what it is. But I just, and so, you know, then we get into this, okay, well, you know, how old should a black belt be? Some friends came over with, to my wife's, my wife's birthday, and, their kid, I was like, good kid. I knew he's in the martial arts. And so I asked him how he was doing. He goes, "Oh, I have my black belt." That's fantastic. He's 11. All right. All right. To better explain the teaching element, to me, they need to be able to explain the technique as if they are teaching a new person. It helps show and grow their understanding. Part of what I do for my black belts is to work with them on how to teach. Okay. No, and if that is part, if that's part of the, if that's part of how you do things, then that's just how you do things. I think like with Bram, like with CSSD, modular right now is a system taught as instructors. You are either a user or you are an instructor, and so right now modular doesn't have any black belts. I'm working on that. But it's just one of those things where it's like, what would I expect a black belt? What would I expect of a modular black belt? What knowledge should they have? And, you know, what would their like abilities be, or whatever. So that's something that I'm working on the back end. But back to this kid, 11-year-old black belt. And now it's Taekwondo, so nothing against Taekwondo. He knows it as a sport. But that's all he knows is that. So, and I cannot remember how long he's been doing it for. But then, okay, but that calls into question, since there is no since there is no standard, a general standard of what a black belt is or what an instructor is, should there be a governing body that says this is what a black belt is? And I know that there are some larger organizations that have kind of taken that on, that are but then we could even go like, what would you need to do as, say you were going to open a martial arts school. There's a lot of people that have opened up martial arts schools who are first degree black belts. And I even early on, maybe it was even before I got my black belt, I had found out that this first degree black belt had opened their own school. And I was like, what? Like, your first degree, like, you've just begun. Like, why would you're going to open a school and teach other people? Now, the sad thing is that we have, like, people, like, for me, I've opened a school, I'm teaching, don't have a lot of students, but I'm still teaching. And I'm like, what? Like, but here's the thing. And I did this. I know bear with me. I did this. I do not have an I love me wall on my wall at the school, from the suggestion of my martial arts business mentor, and pretty much everything else I've heard. And so far, nobody, I can't say nobody, but most people have not asked what my rank is. They don't care. They're just coming to study. Nobody cares. Nobody cares what your rank is for somebody. So somebody could be a first degree black belt and then and open a school, as long as they're a good instructor. Now, if they're a good instructor and they're a safe instructor, then there you go. Like this gal Shauna from Tillamook, she's killing it as a teacher, and she taught at my Friends in the Arts seminar, or Friends in the Art experience in June, or at the beginning, or not in the beginning of June. We're almost halfway through June. Oh my gosh. It was she's actually a really good instructor. So you can't, like, I don't know. Yeah. so I just, and she's first degree. I know she should be testing for her second here soon, but yeah, I was uh um but her, I don't know, I think when it comes down to it, not necessarily, I think being able to explain a technique, but really getting down to it is uh, being able to perform techniques with strength, and, and not, I say with strength, not with just like muscle and strength, but it has to look crisp and clean. Even when the technique is not crisp and clean, because not all techniques can be crisp and clean. Um, I think doing forms, I think the look, you should look like a black belt. You shouldn't look like you've just learned the kata like 3 days late, 3 days before. Um, and though I think that there should be an age limit, I don't know what that limit would be. Like for me, if somebody starts with me at 8, roughly takes about 4 years to get to black belt. So that's what, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 by 12. And I say that this kid, but black belt for me is not necessarily like, oh, it's been 4 years, you get a black belt. It's once you get your first cue, then you're set back. So it might actually be 4.5 to 5 years. So, but I think it also has to do with maturity. That's another thing, maturity. Are you mature enough to do the applications that you need to do to fulfill the requirements? Is there, but also is it skill? That's the other thing, is it, do we base stuff on skill? If we're basing stuff on skill, then I guess you could say that a 10-year-old or an 11-year-old might be able to be a black belt, but I don't know. So I do think there is some maturity level that goes into it. So I'm starting to ramble, so I apologize for that. So I think I've only got like a sip or two in here anyway. So enough rambling. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you watch your Star Trek. I'll try and do some more, because the topic of black belt is something that we could talk about forever, because everybody has, a different thought to it, and all. Also, before I go, I did get a text from my friend who's a secretary, who kind of put me in touch with that gal, and that I sent the message to, and she says that she actually received it. So it is going out to people. So excited. All right. So there you go. Be safe. We'll see you tomorrow morning. I'm going to do some more stuff. Uriel, are you just tuning in now? I'm just about to tune out. All right. Well, I'm glad that you tuned in for at least a little bit. So, but I will be back tomorrow at 9:30. We'll talk some Star Trek. We'll talk some martial arts. I'll let you know if I've gotten anything special from that email that's gone out, any contacts. And until then, so peace be with you.